Back in 2019, I was looking for something to do on a Saturday night and went with some friends to the theater to see this new Knives Out movie, a twist on the classic world's greatest detective story. This time, the accidental culprit, Marta, was known from the start, and we watch her work with the detective, Benoit Blanc, to try and cover her tracks, eventually revealing that she never actually committed the crime, but only thought she did. The daughter of an immigrant, nurse to a famous, aging author who knows him better than his own family, it was a takedown of the worst people you've met, old money elites who all imagine themselves as deserving their high status. They pass plates off on a nurse as if she was a maid, interpret his fondness for her as seduction, because what else could she be good for? They see her hard work and reason it as anything but. In the end, she gets their fortune, which he willed to her, while they can only watch on. The truth which Blanc drags out rights this world, and rewards a hard-working family while tearing down the self-purported successes who've always relied on daddy's name. It's comfort to the weary and work for those yet to learn. And then 2022 gave us Glass Onion, the follow-up about the worst people you've seen, a billionaire named Miles Braun, and a gang of disruptors who rely on his golden teat, senators, scientists, models, and more. Set during the pandemic, it exaggerated its formula to match the world's, as wealth continued to consolidate upwards during a literal wave of death. A man who deserved his fortune even less, an idiot with no original ideas who steals even his murder plans from Blanc's warnings, Braun is torn down and ruined by his desire to be remembered in the same breath as the Mona Lisa, becoming the man responsible for destroying it. Safe from his terrible ideas taken as gold, truth righted the world, and the detective is the hero. Or so it seemed. Wake Up Dead Man brought us something different. Instead of going up, it went down. No longer people you've just met or seen, but people you knew instead. A set of regulars at a church and its minimal staff. Our Lady of Perpetual Fortitude, a small parish in upstate New York, is headed by Monsignor Jefferson Wicks, whose abrasive style has dwindled the churchgoers down to a hardened cyst of regulars. Vera, a lawyer trapped by her father's legacy, him having been friends with Wicks. Cy, her brother who's trying to be a politician, YouTuber, kind of whatever gets attention really. There's Lee, a once great author now working on a book about Wicks as his fame slowly fades. Simone, a world-class cellist retired due to injury and hoping Wicks can heal her. And Nat, a recently divorced doctor coping with alcohol. The church's staff consists of Martha, the lifetime do-everything member, and Samson, her partner and the groundskeeper. We get all this information through Jud, the once troubled but extremely kind soul assistant pastor sent there to try and right the ship. While we all don't know famous authors and world-class musicians, it's the first crop of characters that felt real. People who still have something true to this world to desire. People who still have real fears that need comfort. The mystery of the movie follows suit, solved not by time and place, but by the story those things tried to tell. In this situation, where broken people are clinging to hope to get them through the day, will truth have the same clear-cut benefit? Is a false narrative always for evil, or can it be the very thing which lets us put those broken pieces back together? First, we have Wicks, the clear negative side to narratives. He is a deeply flawed, or even further straight up awful man. He drinks during his service, he literally assaults Jud, he spews hate at any even slightly marginalized group, and he fathered an illegitimate child while lambasting single parents. He has no ethics. The idea that he is a man of moral authority is laughable. And yet he has a die-hard following, people who take his every word to heart as if he's a pillar of their community. Why is that? Well, it's storytelling. Because everything around him supports the idea that he should be listened to. Words always have a setting, a context, and that determines a lot. Take the church itself. Doesn't that say something about Wicks if he's in charge of it? It's inefficiently ornate, full of intricate detailing in a style that hasn't been created in hundreds of years. This signifies importance, that someone took extra time and money to make it this ornate, bolstered even more by the idea of age, that typically things like this are preserved, not recreated, so it probably was too, right? Although it wasn't. It's a place that isn't actually important, it's a fabrication, but it has been made with all the details of one which is so on purpose, so that when a man is placed in charge of it, he has that weight behind him. Trusted with an old, expensive building, surely he's qualified, important himself, is he not? The same goes for all of the objects, the silver chalices, the vestments, and everything else. They're, well, annoyingly complex. The silver has to be polished to look good, the vestments are tons of layers to be washed and put on, and it all has to be handled with specific steps, with reverence. Wicks doesn't just speak, doesn't just read a book, he does so with all of these careful objects, with hours and hours of preparation. This is the same effect as the church itself. If you took this much preparation to say something, it would have to be important, right? So why would this be any different? The needless specifics, since at the end of the day, these are just things anyone could buy and use, once again imply authority, that all the effort spent must be for a reason, even though it's literally just his job to do so. And for one more example, height. We learn inherently from being young that height is authority, as our parents literally have to speak down to us. We imagine God up high, we put judges on raised platforms, we structure companies based on ladders. It's always about being the highest. So what does Wicks do? He gets tall, speaking from this ornate stand rather than the small platform. When he preaches, he is literally looking down on you, speaking with anger, with passion, like gravity, as if he could jump down and destroy you at any moment. Seeing him up there, one unconsciously applies respect. Hell, the last part is something Blanc even uses to his advantage. At the end of the movie, screaming from up there to get an unruly crowd to listen. And not even just the believers, but even the sheriff. Because simply being high and loud, that is, having a larger auditory presence, commands importance. The key word to this all is weight. It adds weight to the words, making them appear, making them feel as more. So that's how he falsely commands respect, but there is a why waiting behind it still. Why do people want to respect him? What do they gain from the lie? Now this comes about from Wicks' main habit, torturing the vulnerable in his crowds. As Jud tells it from his 9 months there, every Sunday Wicks would choose someone to bear down on, berating them in slight code over and over and over until they, without fail, would walk out. Single mothers, homosexual couples, people wearing masks, any vulnerability became a point of attack. Not because of the actual message. No, that's a misunderstanding. The message is not important, but rather just because there seems to be a message, a side to take. Stay and leave, safe and unsafe. It is this that narrative authority is then placed onto. If someone else walks out, that means they were unworthy of this importance, and you, having stayed, are now worthy in contrast. You have all of that power of the man in charge of this building behind you. Safe in a world where attack is common. It places Wicks as a source of comfort, a way to feel better, and if they support him back, maybe a way to end those fears for good. Maybe he can be the source of the book that brings them back to glory. Maybe he can heal what medicine failed to, or bring their ex-wife back. Whatever their struggles, their fears, they have all of this power on their side to fix them now. As long as they support Wicks, they will be supported back for whatever they desire. The genius of Wicks is that he isn't overly specific, that he's angry at anything, providing nothing more than authority and others, because those two things leave the space for anyone to insert themselves into whatever slot. He is nothing more than a platform for what they want to believe, and that makes the strongest belief of all evidence in how he brings this disparate group of people, who don't even seem to really like each other, into the same space over and over and over, even for book clubs. How he takes people who are mostly not hateful, but gets them to follow him, a hateful, terrible man anyway. It works because there is a different Wicks in each mind, overlapping only in its authority. Just look at Psy as a contrast, a young man who has just returned from absolute failure in trying to capture conservative political fervor. He failed because he didn't recognize that it isn't the issues, as he describes hammering every single one, but rather the fear behind them. That base doesn't actually care what they hate, they simply care that they do hate. They care about the other, about being right no matter what. In short, they care about comfort. You are fine. You are living your life well. No need to change or put in effort. So long as someone else is the issue, then they can't be. The problem is unspecific, the problem deep down within, not actually guns and immigrants and DEI, just expressed with those terms as a means of protection, a justification for cruelty. Psy, a sniveling coward plugging his YouTube channel, wasn't tapped into that. He wasn't showing authority and commitment that makes one comfortable in their inaction. He wasn't appearing as someone strong to substitute in for one's own weakness. He was just throwing shit at the wall, begging for views. Wicks, meanwhile, is the method and the comfort, and so they make him truly powerful. That's the scary thing about belief. It makes itself real. Once a famous author believes you, you have his publicity. Once the town doctor believes you, you have his credit. A world-famous cellist believes you, and you have her donations. Because they are facing their fear through Wicks, the means to fix their lives is to support him, to, in effect, be the thing which gives him actual power because they believe he has power. That's the real end of the trick. If you can be what Wicks is for people, then you truly do steal their efforts as your own. He can run a church into the ground, but still live comfortably exactly for this reason. Every action they take is, in reality, his. This is why Blanc hates religion, or rather generalized interpretation. Allow the space for belief, and reality is inherently distorted. Actions will get transferred and confusing, and someone will, in his eyes, always be profiting from such a thing. Why would they obscure reality if it fulfilled their desires, after all? He says things like,
I feel the grandeur, the mystery.
Someone has shown a story at me that I do not believe.
As the detective, he is a man of cold hard facts, helping Marta by dismantling the lies Harlan's family told themselves and each other, benefiting Helen by tearing down the image of Miles Braun, billionaire genius. The story was always to pull one over, and he stops that from happening. The way he speaks of the most famous narrative, religion, and all the evil it has justified in creating something unreal and othering like Wicks did is personal to him. We get no confirmed details of his past, but we know that Blanc is gay, and he speaks of a deeply religious mother in a deeply southern accent. We can put the pieces together and see that he has probably been the other, the shamed conduit for other people's comfort. As such, motivation becomes simply a way to reverse engineer reality. You understand why someone would do something, only to understand what that something actually was, bringing reality and perception into harmony. Saying,
Telling the truth can be a bitter herb.
He sees this as undoubtedly correct, that even if it feels horrible in the moment to shatter that comfort, it will be better in the end. Reality is good and enough. And he's pretty correct given his profession. All of these crimes have a lie to be unwound, and on the whole, we need to know the facts of what happened to properly judge the situation, provide accountability, keep record, and so on. If someone steals your car, you want a detective on it finding the facts, not a storyteller understanding why. In the same way, Wicks's flock needs a dose of reality. Lee's popularity has been in steep decline ever since he moved here and came under Wicks's wing, as the man fed him poison endlessly, pulling him into the world is out to get you mindset. He needed to know that it was a scam, to know his numbers were dropping and what he could do to recover. A subjective thing like writing is hard to quantify, but how else do you make it a career but the facts of copies sold and so on? Simone needed the facts of her body, that the pain was telling her the same movements as before weren't possible, but in order to find a new way to play, as she does at the end. But Wicks told her he could heal her entirely, spun a narrative of the Lord's power, and so instead of working with the pain, she stews in it, becoming more and more bitter, accepting his hate. And Nat needed the facts of what brought his marriage to an end, to judge if maybe the alcohol, the rage, to see if any of that had a factor and maybe he could improve. But instead, Wicks tells him he's fine as is, the whole flock has no reason to change. These people all needed a reality check. Yes, it would hurt to accept these things, that your life would never be what it once was and there was hard work to do, but that bitter herb would allow them to go and build something new, move forward rather than clinging to what had already fallen apart. But is a gaze eternally set on facts truly the best way to go? To understand this, we have to look at Blanc's influence on Jud. Jud is, well, he's like the best guy you've ever met. He punches an asshole deacon in the face, which wasn't the best way to do it, but he stood up to someone everyone wanted to. He receives constant suspicion from the flock, but only ever responds to them in kind, meeting them one-on-one to understand who they are. He is literally assaulted by Wicks, but stays to perform his duties anyway because he feels loyalty to helping these people. I mean, he hears Cy talk about spewing hatred to try and gain fame, and his response is by saying that connecting with people is difficult and trying to offer him better ways to do so. He is always fostering the good in what exists rather than tearing the delusions down harshly. Because what is causing that deep down? Cy is the illegitimate child who never knew his real father, forced to be raised by his sister Vera in this probably strict household. Isn't it easy to imagine a lack of attention that caused his current motivations? The forgotten child compensates by trying to be a star. This is the kind of fear that Wicks exploited, but Jud tries to find it and cure it instead, making it impossible to exploit them later. Jud is a really kind guy. But then Wicks is murdered impossibly, a locked-room mystery where he's somehow stabbed in the back, alone in a closet. Simply from being the nearest and being known to dislike Wicks, Jud is a suspect who Blanc recruits to work the case with him in typical Knives Out fashion. It's here that he becomes much less kind. He goes from his calm, understanding self to shouting at the congregation, swatting them away, calling them his enemies, directly believing that
finding the facts with that detective puts me against you and this flock, then so be it.
As he gives into his anger and beats the hell out of Sam's punching bag. He snatches a figure of Jesus trying to look for clues, tries to force a woman who needs help off the phone. He becomes cold and uncaring, focusing on only being right and proving others wrong, us against them, just like Wicks always told him. That's the influence of Blanc's pure truth on Jud. There are still sides to war on, they're just called right and wrong now. And with the certainty of right, kindness is often forgotten. I mean, can't they see it for themselves after all? They should know better. It forgets motivation. It forgets that each person is seeing truth with different eyes and different reasons, meaning that while Blanc doesn't feed their fears, he certainly doesn't cure them either. By only seeing their motivations as the means to ascertain facts, he simply leaves them in the state which drove their negativity to begin with. And this is what we see in the previous two movies. Knives Out ends with Marta finally being rewarded and the family punished, but that also leaves two sides to war, two sides divided by a line where hate festers endlessly. One of the final shots is literally them looking up angrily at her, and more conflict will follow from that because they are clamoring for the past. Their motivations have not changed. Glass Onion ends with Miles Braun finally revealed as the idiot he is, and the people who bolstered him ceasing to, but only because he was financially ruined, because it is no longer beneficial to follow him. Not even murder turned them against him, and so they're still easily corruptible in their positions of power. The facts were laid out, truth bare, and that did lead to better outcomes than otherwise, but the people only changed because they had to, because he, an outside force, moved the pieces. The truth helped, but it didn't sustain, it didn't continue to better. Just as here, it worsens Jud and aggravates the flock. But Blanc wants to believe the truth alone is better because it is better for him. The truth is Blanc's way to be comforted, just as the flock had theirs. While he doesn't care about fame, brushing off being on The View, or money, and working with Helen for no payment, he does care about one thing: winning. The truth provides a measurement for oneself, in fact, the ultimate one due to the nature of narrative. As we talked about with the Library of Babel, there are infinitely many ways to combine the characters, and to do so is always within our power. Yet the people search for pre-made sentences because those are more definite, because those have no doubt, and simply by existing outside of the mind, they dispel millions of other interpretations inside of it. We search rather than create because it is essentially divine value. If Blanc finds the cold, hard truth, then he is the most right anyone can be. The world is a puzzle with one set answer, and he can find it first. He can be demonstrably in the right, the most powerful, dispelling the motivations of hundreds of others at once. Especially in this case, one where a holy man is supposedly struck down in an impossible way. With everyone's minds trending towards the unreal, this is
final checkmate over the mysteries of faith.
To solve this case is to conquer religion itself, bringing thousands of years of belief to its knees and showing that the rational is king, and he is the king of the rational. Convenient, isn't it? The thing he just so happens to be the best at is the only valuable one. The win is essentially stating himself as undoubtable, conquering all of his fears, just as the flock used Wicks for. And this is why the truth doesn't inherently make the world better, because we are subjective creatures by the nature of being separate, but the truth is objective, limiting. We are meant to see different things, to split off and interpret so that we're insulated as a whole species against singular events and mindsets. But we can't do that if we only have the facts and only see the same thing. With total truth, the world loses its vibrancy, essentially. And this is probably your favorite detail about the movie: the lighting. When Blanc starts to rant about religion to Jud, the church goes dark, all of those details which provide the narrative fading into a silhouette, into simple use instead of intricacy and ritual. There's only their outline, one way to see them, cold and harsh, and all gray, nothing to appreciate in color or brightness. It's dull, uninteresting. The point is clear. The way Blanc sees the world flattens it. It removes the ways in which people become unique or find something of their own. The same goes for many of his actions. Throwing his hat over the bust of Jesus, smashing the figurine to bits. It speaks to a man with an actually quite toxic mindset. Things are just things. Jud takes Blanc's hat off the bust because to him, it isn't just a little statue, it is a representation of something he feels. It is the physicality of what he loves. Him keeping that bust and respecting it is an act of showing what is important to him by physically caring for a thing. Yes, at the end of the day, it is just atoms, it's wasted effort, but isn't that everything when we consider the eventual grave? So what choice do we have but to create meaning in meaningless things? Because Jud can see it this way, it becomes something more for this moment. It gives him a distinction from others and allows him more ways to express himself. It allows anything to be everything, the human mind expanding reality. This time and energy is spent in service of love, his expression, and so it can never be a waste, but rather a structural reinforcement. At the cost of moving an occasional hat, a bit more dusting, he gains his own life, not just a life. The fact that Blanc doesn't do this is probably the source of his depression in Glass Onion. Set during the pandemic, he's stuck inside and sulking, apparently spending days at a time in the bath, online with friends, but to little positive impact on his mindset. While there was a depressing time in general, Blanc's goes further than most, exactly because he doesn't value small things, doesn't ascribe importance to physical objects. If the world is just meaningless things, then being stuck inside is going to be much worse, because one has no little rituals or sacred objects which provide the benefit of outside experiences. Someone who could pray would have an easier time because sitting on their table is the holy book itself, along with the actions one takes to pay it reverence. It gave them something important to do still in a shut-down world, actions worth taking for something colorful and exciting when nothing else could be. What's inside can't be taken away even when the world shuts down. But Blanc, only deriving his excitement and worth from finding the truth, inherently an external feat, is stuck in this constant cycle of depression where a case brings him up and solving it brings him down because, well, now there's nothing left.
I lose it between cases anyway. I don't need puzzles or games. The last thing I need is a vacation. I need a great case.
Once you beat back all the lies, what's left? Nothing, just the space for the next case. There was never a true gain, so he carries nothing important between them, simply setting the bar for what he needs to feel higher and higher. He can never really love himself in this state, as the brightness of Blanc's world relies on the darkness of others. The short of it is motivation. You can lay out all the facts, but what will get people to actually move? This is what Wicks was great at, getting people to change, even though it was for the worse. But that's the thing. Their lives are getting worse, yet their motivations remain entirely steeled, if not more powerful than ever. Lee came here famous and slowly slipped into irrelevance because of Wicks, but he builds a goddamn moat around his house because he believes this stuff to his core. Sai is failing to gain any ground, but he's still making every single second into content because he believes there's power to be captured in Wicks. Nat was once a lot happier, probably just with negativity deep inside, and Wicks draws it out, makes it into all of him, his entire reason for being, reinforcing itself over and over, yet he keeps going stronger than ever. Nothing is going good for these people, but never once do they falter because they have found value simply in the ways they are living life. Even if all of their actions aid Wicks and move through him, the reasons are deeply within them, unique and personal, and because of what he says, never threatened by anything. It is exactly because they aren't focused on the truth that this is possible. How can you assault a motivation with no facts to it? There's no solid evidence against it, and so it remains always strong. Even if they know Wicks is awful, they will stick by him until the end of time because he is the reason for everything, the reason through everything. This is an extremely powerful tool of manipulation. We can't just dismiss it because, well, we're either missing out or we're leaving the door open for someone to abuse it. The only question is how can we use this kind of power for good? How do we guard it against itself? This channel is made possible and kept sponsorless by our channel members and patrons. If you found insight from it or other videos, consider supporting for as low as $3 a month, or for free by adding a like, a hype within 7 days of publishing, sharing with someone who'd enjoy, or the best, leaving your thoughts in a comment. Relevant links are pinned down there as well. When Blanc spoke about religion, all of the world's brightness faded. When Wicks preached, there was light in the church, but it was light on him. The detail was secondary, only lit so that his face could be seen. But look what happens when Jud speaks about religion back to Blanc. He doesn't deny what the detective says, confirming that the church is storytelling, making a modern place appear grand and ancient. But he finishes with,
Did these stories convince us of a lie? Or did they resonate with something deep inside us that's profoundly true, that we can't express any other way?
and when he does, the light returns to the building but behind him, lighting him only as a consequence of lighting everything else. That mindset, that the storytelling of it all is the only way to resonate with something deep inside us, is what brings the detail and intricacy back without abuse. It minimizes the individual, but for the individual. It convinces them of something grander only to provide them with the strength that one person could never have on their own. It takes truth, that which builds the actual structure, but then provides the space to appreciate its details. Let's start getting into how. Jud struggled in his youth, a nondescript mix of substances and violence that came to a head when, during a boxing match, he killed his opponent. While it's the extreme end of a sport's consequences, it is still a consequence of what it relies on and encourages, and so it could be treated as just an accident. Jud could have walked away from this unchanged. But he doesn't because of what he felt when he was throwing those punches.
It wasn't an accident. I killed him with hate in my heart.
Blanc, given his thoughts on the advantage of storytelling, sees religion as a cover for this. They offered him eternal forgiveness. They offered him employment. They offered him an escape from the guilt, saying everything would be okay. To Blanc, it is only a cover for the truth, unacknowledged in all its unfortunate details. A bitter herb is needed. But as Jud returns, it is because religion resonated with something within him that is deeply true. It didn't say that what he did magically went away. Rather, it provided him a reason to accept what happened and confess to it.
God didn't hide me or fix me. He loves me when I'm guilty.
To confess normally in the realm of cold facts where objects are just objects, events are just events, all he would be is a killer. To embrace what happened is to embrace the worst of himself, and then to be punished for it simply to be punished. Rehabilitation is not a consideration of our current systems. But a religious outlook offered something else. It told him that no matter what he did, an eternal being, all-powerful with presence felt in that grand structure, in those rituals, an almost physical thing, would love him even if he killed a man in the ring, because that thing was everywhere every time. It could see inside of him and know that what drove him was not just hate, but fear. Fear developed over a lifetime of trouble. Jud doesn't fight to fight, he fights to protect himself. That is the only time we see it rise in him. By making God almost feel physical, they created a space where salvation had weight behind it, where it's possible to follow crime with dedication and betterment instead of punishment. It allowed him to examine himself and, importantly, always stay dedicated to improving. Part of why Jud struggled was likely the inconsistencies of human experience. No 2 days are exactly the same. For reasons well beyond our control, the same set of conditions can yield entirely different results because inside of us is a constantly evolving mess, replicating with mistakes and successes alike that depends on what we eat and the time of day and how much sun we get in. A lot. And then there's all the small shifts. Say we could buy the same meal each day, but someone different prepares it. Someone different checks the quality. It can get worse, get better, make us sick, anything. And that's without even mentioning that no matter how hard we try, we aren't in control. A road closure kills the struggling business. A new manager ruins a once great job. A fire burns down the only home. Our wishes are small waves merging into tides and then suffocating themselves in the resultant. Inconsistency is the only consistency, and so the motivation to be your best self rises and falls just the same. It is hard to try every single day. But what if your motivation was larger? What if all of that detail and intricacy that made something feel real, that made it into a worldwide fact, believed in you? Where Wicks funneled everything through himself, Jud got the true experience where you believe in God, but God also believes in you. While his life, his motivation may go up and down daily, there was something above all of that which is perpetual and great, forever by his side. And doesn't that make his capabilities even greater? He's not limited by just what he believes he can do, but by what God believes he can do. Something so respected is saying he can do it, and if he simply believes in that fact, he infinitely increases his belief in himself. Ideally, we would all believe in the you who believes in you, but in a harsh world, sometimes we believe in the me who believes in you. It's essentially a ward against doubt. Well, it's easy to doubt oneself. Individual people facing down a whole world, it's hard to doubt one's senses. So what if we turn sensation into evidence? That's what the detail on the rafters does. That's what the robes do, the silver. It provides physical sensation to abstract motivation. The rituals one takes part in are as much the same. It directs their efforts to this importance, makes them a part of the process, and it's what allows what they pay in to be returned. The worshipper becomes the evidence that strengthens that which believes in them. Where Blanc sits alone and depressed with just things, Jud is never alone. He has meaning around him perpetually in everything. When done right, religion is as Jud describes.
He didn't transform me, he sustains me every day.
We see how this is all practiced and how it betters the world on the whole, as Jud remembers his purpose to pass this daily bread on to others. Despite being caught up in Blanc's methods, he turns back while on the phone with a construction company trying to get crucial details for the case. But it's after hours and the only worker who answers, Louise, doesn't have the info they need. She has to ask her brother. A very chatty woman, Jud spends the entire call trying to communicate this to her and convince her just please get them this information ASAP, interrupting all of her small talk and even brushing off a chance to convince her of this church is good after Wicks gave her a negative experience before. He's about to even hang up on her when, catching his attention for just a moment, she asks for his prayers. Her mother is sick, a brain tumor making her much more aggressive than usual while also about to cut her life short. This led to them fighting and her mother now refusing to speak with her. Louise is worried that that fight will be the last they ever see each other. The cuts here tell the story. When they make the call, we see Louise for a moment, just long enough to say hello from this long shot before the camera focuses on Jud and Blanc for most of the scene, essentially following the former through the room. It's all about Jud, showing Blanc only for reaction shots. But when Jud finally listens to Louise, when he remembers that she's a real person with real emotions, that's the only time the camera finally cuts back to her, much closer, showing her tears, all of her emotion plainly. We only see her when Jud sees her. He's been forgetting about the deep within, about what only the narrative can touch, about what saved and sustains him while he's followed Blanc. Dropping the case entirely to spend what seems to be hours on the phone with her, Jud reignites the cycle of benefit. No, he's not forcing a crucial aspect of the truth out of her. Yes, it is a lengthy process, but what he's doing is giving her the room and reason to provide him with the truth instead. This kind of fear about her mother, that kind of stuff, is consuming. It slips into every day, every action. It draws us to less mindful comforts. It prevents us from having the time to do the things we want, to focus on changing for the better because it's playing in there again and again and again, uncertainty forever. It robs our motivation to fix it even, a cycle that can continue forever. We need energy to fix our situation, but to fix our situation, we need energy, but to get energy, we need to fix our situation, but to fix our situation, we need energy, and you get the idea. Jud, in offering her some comfort, the idea that a being much more powerful than hers is conscious of the issue, and hell, even just the comfort of knowing a man was willing to spend his night listening to her speak about it, it's saying to her that she isn't alone. She doesn't have to pull the motivation to fix this from just herself, but can rely on him and God. It doesn't magically heal her mother or make her talk to her again, but it does likely give her the motivation beyond herself to make another meeting happen of her own will, rather than worrying so hard about how it will go that she never does. It sets her expectations, which then truly do impact the world around her. The better you think tomorrow will go, the more energy you face it with, and so the better it does. Our narratives do shape reality. It's in being undistracted by this fear for the night for once that she can go out of her way to make that call and get Jud the information well after business hours, because having been shown kindness and care, she has the reason and the energy to show kindness and care in return, taking actions which have a positive purpose to her and someone else. Meaning to action, reason to keep moving, that is daily bread. Yes, the truth could have been forced out, but creating this reason for it to be confessed instead offers that much more than just once. I think this is sort of like the thesis of the film because, well, there's an unresolved conflict so far, that whole murder of Wicks thing. We've avoided spoiling most of the twists and turns so far, but from this point on, all bets are off on that. Jud is the leading suspect in killing Wicks, and about to be arrested for it, even though he didn't do it. But in his self-doubt, in that hatred within him that once killed a man, he is willing to believe he did it anyway. Is it really okay for this to occur, for the truth to never be found and a falsehood to imprison a man? Of course not. That's why Blanc stops him from doing so at the last minute. But rather than his final checkmate, Blanc reveals all the details and then sees something else. All the stuff we just covered.
I had to look at the myth that was being constructed.
It was a crime that wasn't just for advantage. No, it was for fear. Plenty of people had a reason to kill Wicks, for all the secrets he knew which could ruin them, and his admission that he was going to do so. He was going to bury Lee's book, ruin Nat's career. Everyone had a reason, but they weren't the ones who did it. No, it was Martha, the loyal servant who sought not to save Wicks, but to save what Wicks meant to others, the belief which drove them. Even though he was a terrible man, he gave something to them all, a muse, a healer, a coach. He was the reason they lived, and that reason was faltering, turning against them. But if Wicks were to be struck down by the devil and then raised by the Lord, absolved of his sin and turning this church into an overnight landmark, then all of this good would be preserved. The reason she did this was the reason Jud does everything, to pass on the daily bread. Being forced to understand this, both by the nature of the case and Jud's words and actions, Blanc never makes the final reveal himself. Instead, to his great dishonor as Sai is recording this and posts it to go viral, he says he cannot solve the case. An act of grace for a killer who knows he knows exactly what Jud would do, saying you must not be punished, but rather, you are safe to confess. Because that's the solution. You don't have to catch the killer with cold hard truth if they turn themselves in. If you can understand and ease the fear which drove their crime, validate that the emotions are real even if the expression was evil, you can make a space which is safe for them to accept their own betterment, to poke at the humanity within them so that they remember it too. And this doesn't just solve the case, it solves the issue behind the case. The tough part is that for Blanc, without issues being the case, there is no right and wrong, there is no checkmate that proves him worthwhile. To perform this act is also to commit himself to a value outside of black and white, to embrace some amount of subjectivity instead. He isn't suddenly religious, but he does understand that grace for another means a world with grace for himself too, where one day maybe he could be comfortable without the win and thus free of the ups and downs, the eternal chase, to have daily bread. It's kind of like, what can he get from justice itself, not through justice, and he becomes a better detective for that. And so Martha does return to confess, having already poisoned herself, but seeking to clear Jud's name because he, and not the memory of Wicks as some risen by the Lord Savior, has just been shown being capable of bettering this world. If he convinced Blanc of all of this, then, well, surely he could do the same again. By him existing here, her fears are quelled. She knows a place like this, which sustained her for her entire life, will continue to exist, that it doesn't need an unfair advantage to do so, but rather will be sustained by its own ideals, exhibiting only the best of itself. Is the church going to face challenges now that Sai's video of Blanc proves Wicks was raised by God? Yes. Jud will be surrounded by hateful eyes as he leads this church into the future when it reopens a year from now. But if he can show even a woman who tried to frame him for murder grace, he can find and quell the fears in any of the people in this crowd, making a space where it's finally safe to be vulnerable and be helped. All of the people who need it most will be funneled to this one man with patience for their sins. By being shown grace, the world receives something better than the truth. It receives the desire for truth, a personal reason to seek out reality, to impact it and better it, to shape it and change it. We know this. We always have.
I have to do it of my own free will or it won't mean anything.
So long as we think that way, we keep our stories in line with reality, not covering it, but enhancing it, picking our reason to engage with it. That is daily bread, the substance, the good of 2,000 years of a lie. And that will wrap things up for this one. This video that is probably going to do terrible because it's not going to have anime in the thumbnail, but I couldn't not talk about this movie. It has been on my mind for the whole almost year that it's been out now. It's just one of my favorite topics. It's got that like angel's egg, kind of like the point of faith thing going on to it. Religion almost has like an existential quality to it where like you are, it's like a practice of that where you're ascribing meaning to objects. Like your belief is making them into something that then betters your life. Like it really shows how much our minds can do and impact the world. And like obviously for reasons that are probably obvious, you know, it's easy for me to have a negative view of religion, but this is one of those movies that like shows you like the ideal of it. Like this is what it could be, what it should be, how it could really be good for people. And like it makes it impossible to hate it. Like I understand the appeal of it. Like it's not for me, but I'm glad people have it. I'm glad it can make them better, but we really do need to make sure it's doing that, to let it be its purest thing that can really be so good as we saw, instead of being something that's going to just force hate and vitriol into them. And seeing Rian Johnson use this franchise to tear down his main character, to craft that message, you can't not talk about it. But, and this isn't even covering all the like fatherhood stuff in it. There's a whole host of other, like another, not subplot, but there's even more going on in this movie about like the sins of the father and then like daughters paying for that. And I didn't even talk about that here. There's still more to it. I probably won't make something on that, but maybe in like a future like multiple series, one topic video that'll go in there. But yeah, because this one probably won't do well, this is one of those ones where any likes, comments, hypes within a week of posting will be very much appreciated. Obviously because it helps the video do better, but the comments are also always the best part, seeing what you all think, deepening the topic, getting more of that engagement in there, because I only have one perspective. I'm not religious. You, as someone who is, could say what I got wrong, could add more to it, give that extra detail and make it a more complete conversation. So, all of them really help, but comments are just really like the best part of doing this. Links in the pinned comment to Patreon and Discord, also channel memberships and Patreon, giving a monthly amount to really help keep this going. Every bit there helps get closer to me being able to do this more and make things even better for you. Like if I had the time, I would have loved to really go costumes and like on location for this and make it something really visually special, but I can't do that until it's more financially viable because a whole host of YouTube reasons with timing and so on. But so big thanks to those people whose names you're seeing on the screen now, but thanks you to everyone for your time. It really does mean a lot. So thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.